ghost activity, fringe science, interdimensional beings, psychic phenomenon, and conspiracy theories. Does the truth exist? How close are we to finding it? Come listen and discover the answers yourself. Welcome to the Paranormal MD, where the out of the ordinary is discussed weekly. Join your host, Mary Marshall, and her guest as they inform, discuss, and entertain you. Mary welcomes your input during the program, so call in and let your opinions and voice be heard. Talk radio just got weirder, wiser, and more interesting. Now, here is your host of the Paranormal MD Radio Show, Mary Marshall.
Good evening and welcome to the Paranormal MD. I'm Mary Marshall, your host, and it is my pleasure to be here with you tonight. Thank you for joining me here. The guest tonight is Robert Veach, who is which, again, with me with the last names, I know the guy. I'm friends with the man. Do you think I would know, is it Veach or if this is in fact how you say his last name? Of course I don't. But anyway, Robert is an engineer and an inventor who has had even actually some of his equipment featured or used on television shows, ghost hunting type shows. Robert is also the founder of Veach Paranormal. I had the opportunity to go to Robert's lab and see all his paranormal investigating electronic inventions or equipment modifications, and had awesome conversation with him. It was really just fascinating and interesting. So we'll be talking to him a little bit later on the show about some of these types of things. Also, I would like to take a moment to personally invite those of you who are listening who are not in the chat room to come and join us in the chat room right now. It's slowly filling up in there. Going to take a peek in there right now and say hi to a few people. Hi, Patricia. Hi, Kat, Joe, Chuck, Anton, Marcellus, there's a new somebody else in there. I don't know who the person is, but yeah, it's starting to fill up in there. So come and join us in there right now. The thing is that it gets to be like just that old friend. You go in there and you start to see some of the same people. There's a lot of good conversation had there. Also, if you're a little bit shy and you don't want to call in, but you have a comment or a question, that's the place for you to ask that. You can pose the question in the chat room, and your chat master, Pam, will relay the questions to me for you. So it makes it pretty easy. And then I want to let everybody know that this, pretty much today and tomorrow morning is your last chance to get tickets for the Paranormal Experience. I want to invite you and anybody in the northern Illinois and surrounding states area to come to this really awesome event. It's called the Paranormal Experience. It is hosted by Wisconsin Paranormal Investigators and Illinois Beach State Resort. I'm one of the speakers there. It's going to be a dinner, a workshop, a lecture, and an investigation. So we'll be doing that into the wee hours of the night there. Apparently there has been some activity there. So you can call, you can get the tickets, book yourself a room. That way when you're done in the wee hours of the night, you just go to your room and crawl into bed and get some sleep. And if you are struggling last minute trying to find this information, you can certainly find it at the paranormalmdradio.com on the show website. It's right there on the homepage, the information. So now, let me introduce you to your chat master, Pam. Hello, Pam.
Hi, Mary. How are you?
Okay, you're actually really here this week. Last week, I'm like, hello, hello, hello.
I like to keep you guessing.
It was like, oh, and sometimes I never know. I don't know. Is it me? Is it her? Am I being, it's one of those things. Am I being heard? Is she? Am I not hearing her? I don't know. So apparently, Pam, you and a few other people have been having one of those days where it's just little out of sorts.
Started my life these days, but hey, it's Thursday night. Everything's all better now.
It's right. This is the escape time. Just escape from it and, into the world, into the little Paranormal MD world. One thing we're going to do tonight is I am going to be tackling some of the emails that are sent to the Paranormal MD and or the Paranormal MD through route of the team website or the radio show. Basically, in a sense, to me, the Paranormal MD. And a lot of these emails are from people who listen, and a lot of them are not. I mean, they're just people who are out there and are looking for help. And the interesting thing is that a lot of them are having to do with a lot of same topics sometimes. Sometimes it's a specific incident. Sometimes it's a little more general. So the first couple ones, what I've asked Pam to do actually pre-going on air is and I'll get you because you're like, which one are you talking about, Mary? The colors of aura, that one. It's Debbie Cole. We won't say where.
That's my last page. Yes. Debbie Cole asked, do you want me to read this for you?
Yeah, go ahead, and then we'll just, because some of these were pre-answered, and some of them a little bit later, a couple of them up the road, I'll get into more about it, but these we're going to just read.
Okay, so Debbie Cole of Middlesex asks, and says, hi, I wonder if you could give me any information around manifestations. I work in a 1500 building that used to be a flour mill. There have been many sightings, but today my colleague noticed as they walked past my office a manifestation of quite dark blue with yellow around the head area. And it was shaped like a person sat in the chair. When she walked back, it had gone. Would someone be able to explain the colors to us, please? Thank you, Debbie Cole.
I have no, I was going to just pee. I was going to say, I have no clue. I don't know what she's even talking about. Here's the thing, is I could, I say, read this verbatim, my response. And some of it I will, and some of it I'm just going to throw in there. I wrote back basically, hi, Debbie, everything in our world has a frequency of energy. That is a property of a wave at which it resonates. Within the electromagnetic spectrum, there is an array of frequencies ranging from cosmic rays to common, 60 hertz type electricity, light, sound, the brain, all resonate at different frequencies. Often what one refers to as an aura is in fact a bioelectric field that is a natural state of life. That energy field will also change according to your health, mental status, physical activity, and so on. Have you ever heard of someone having their aura photographed? Different frequencies will resonate and can be interpreted as different colors of light. Now, I'm going to stop here just at this point because, well, maybe I won't. I'll just read it because I'm probably going to answer it myself. This energy can be interpreted and photographed as light due to the different and same principles, due to the specific frequencies being put out and received by the iris of a camera or the like. This is same principle holds true for reading other energies we come across. FLIR is used in paranormal investigating senses different temperatures, sometimes referred to on TV as heat signature. Heat, or better put, temperatures, are had by interpreting the particular frequencies given out. And basically kind of just go on to say that although this is an abbreviated answer, energy and frequencies are all around us, and in those energy frequencies, that determines what we see or feel or even think, because your brain waves are susceptible to the energy around it too. So an apparition can at times appear to have color or different colors about it. So it's much like the aura of a person, in that light and colors and so on and so forth all have their own frequency. So could you or any of us at any given time, sometimes people have seen apparitions and you see just that, the typical kind of, white fluorescent type white that comes out. Occasionally you will see, somebody says it looked like there's a little bit of a blue. And again, this is how your eye is and brain is interpreting what is coming across. So that one, that's my answer for that. So.
I never really thought about it because I haven't really ever seen one myself. So I guess I haven't really thought about if they're in color or, and we've kind of half joked but also seriously asked the question, why do we see them with clothes on? I think kind of seems the same idea with color. Why would you see different color or black and white or white?
Yeah, I mean, that to me, that's really almost gets into something different. But yeah, I mean, it's the projection of when you're getting them with the clothes, because we've had this whole discussion about, with nudist colonies or nudist communities and asking them, and, because I think if I went there and I saw somebody who'd lived in a nudist community their whole life, it would be very interesting to see. Is the family, people are used to seeing them with no clothes on, that's how they're probably going to see them. If I came in, would I see the same ghost with clothes on? So, I mean, that's a kind of different thing that I really, I think it would be very telling to actually kind of be able to do that. But when you're getting in with the colors and the light and stuff like that, that gets into a different type of frequency, and that's what people are seeing on those photographs, those aura photographs. It's how the iris of the camera, how it is interpreting what it is seeing, and the bioelectric field that comes off of a person. So it's not really anything like, like what's the expression people use, all woo-woo. It's not, woo-woo out there. It's just, All right. Now, the next one is from Kelly in Tennessee.
And she says, I'm a ghost investigator, and usually nothing about ghosts scare me until recently. My husband and I seen the same woman in our apartment. She floated instead of walking. She wore all black and had a black veil over her face. She didn't scare me until I had a dream about her. In the dream, she just stood pointing at me, and I felt all of my energy drained from me. And I was so scared I couldn't speak. But this was almost like deja vu instead of a dream. I feel so uneasy in my home now. Can you tell me anything about this woman? I've tried doing research on her, but I have failed to find anything. Please email if you can help. Thanks.
Hello, and welcome back. This was a Mary faux pas here that caused this. I sent everyone into a panic. Oh no! Where'd she go? Okay, I'm still getting. It's now I went from my cold into an allergy thing. I was being polite. I had to, mute it, and I was a knucklehead and didn't get the mute button off, and then couldn't get it. I'm like, come on, unmute. Where's the thing? Oh goodness gracious! So, Pam.
Yes.
See, I'm going to end up popping in. If you want to just start reading that letter from Kelly, my response, from it. Just see, everybody's having one of those days. Everyone, I say. What I responded to Kelly on this is when you get something like this, and she's asking, can you tell me, what I'm seeing? Even if I'm there, more than likely, I would not be able to do that. So all best you can do is offer up some options of what is going on. And the fact that this woman is an investigator and seemed to be scared by it, it's starting to make you think, some kind of more bad things are going on than is initially relayed. She's feeling uneasy in her home. So, can you tell me anything about this woman? Well, not specifically. I cannot. But what I can do is give you some generalizations. If you've done the history on where you live and turned up nothing, and this activity recently started and wasn't there since you moved in, more than likely you've brought home an attachment. It would be prudent of you to go over the past few places you've investigated and see if she might be from there. Obviously, I cannot tell you who she is or what she wants, but from your email and what little I know, it sounds like she is coming to you possibly for help, meaning she came across you elsewhere and may feel you are the first that was listening or paying attention to her from this side. One other thing, though, you said there is an apartment, so it might be possible that she might belong to someone else in the building. Be careful about doing EVP work or investigative stuff in your own home, as this may keep her there with you. Most times, attachments that are brought home from elsewhere will leave again on their own accord. Usually, they will hang around, maybe at most for a week, but then if ignored, for the most part, they will go back to where they came from. Tell her out loud, and I know you know most of the stuff already, but I'm just saying it to you again now. Have you and your husband tell her nicely but firmly she must leave and cannot stay with you, that she needs to go back to where she came from and leave your home. Tell her this is your time and space, and she is not part of yours and must leave. After this out loud conversation, sage your home with white sage to rid any negative entity or energy. Sage is not going to work in getting rid of benign entities. Sage yourself and others that live in your household as well. After that, ignore her. Remember, they hear out loud conversations, so don't even talk about her with your husband inside your home. Activity will likely cease after a short period of time. I hope this has helped. Now Kelly responds back, a few days later. Or no, actually about a month later, I guess it was, right? According to the email, something like.
Yeah, and she says she's sorry it took so long to get back to you. I haven't had internet for a while. I did everything you told me to do about the lady, and it worked. Thanks for the help. I am, however, having a lot of bad things go on in my home. I've done absolutely everything I can do, but it won't stop. It's even bothering my 2 little girls. It has attached itself to 3-year-old daughter. She won't even go into the bathroom alone anymore. I really hope and pray it stops soon because I don't know what to do anymore. Thanks for all your help, though.
We're actually coming up really close to having to take a break here. So before I actually go and respond to that, I'm going to start taking us out towards break. We're going to have to take a break in a brief moment, but before we do, I want to invite you to a lecture that I am giving, and it is at the Theosophical Society in Wheaton, Illinois. And this is going to be May 15th at 7 p.m. And following this lecture, the next 3 Saturdays, starting May 17th, I'm starting a course titled there, The Science of Paranormal Investigation. You can get more info about this at the paranormalmdradio.com or right at the Theosophical Society. Well, it is time for that break, so grab a drink, but don't go too far away. We'll be right back with more. Stay tuned. Hello and welcome back. I'm Mary Marshall, your host, and you are listening to the Paranormal MD Live. One of the things, if you want to call in a little while, the phone lines will be open after 9 p.m., and that number is the Paranormal MD. Okay, so we stopped right in the middle of this other email, so I do want to get back to this. Pam, did we leave off where she responded back?
No,
I don't think so.
Yes, I read that, it is attached to her little girl, and she didn't know what to do anymore.
Yeah,
and we were going to respond to that.
Yeah, okay, so she's done absolutely everything. Then one thing was saying is that everything you told me to do about the lady, and it worked for this lady ghost that she was talking to. But as I had originally suspected, more does come out. Because she says, thanks for the help, but however, I'm having a lot of bad things go on in my home, and it really had nothing to do with this attachment that she had brought home. And she's saying it's bothering her 2 girls and seems to have attached itself to her 3-year-old daughter. So, 3 years ago, I had a there isn't a lot of information here. And this is obviously the problem, again, with this type of exchange. So you do the best you can in responding. And this is my response. I'm not sure what you mean by bad, but maybe you should just hit your place with everything you can. So here are some suggestions for you to use if they seem applicable for your situation. You should still be doing white saging weekly, and I'm going to cut from this email response and let anybody who's listening, I am going to get into some on ways to do this in protection at the end of this all. But to continue on with this email, saging weekly, and I hope you are keeping your thoughts very focused during the time you are doing it. If you can't keep your thoughts focused, especially if it keeps creeping back to the negative reason why you are doing this or what this is for, to be safe, just keep repeating over and over out loud, only good in me, only good in my space, with occasional cast out all negativity and darkness and protect with goodness and light. Something like this anyway. Shaman taught me this and how important it is to keep our thoughts clean, clear, and focused. And if one can't, then say this. And that's kind of the intent behind my response to it. Remember, it is not necessarily the words, but the intent, as is the case with most of this stuff, like prayer, etc. Obviously, doing this with a window slightly opened, finishing up at the window or door, and think of it as chasing a bug out and closing up behind it. Other options you can use are salt around the house, which is said to help many, but because it will just melt away in winter or in the rain, or if you have pets or children, even if you live in a dry area, it's not always the most practical way to go. Another option is using white candles burned regularly. Helps, as does quartz crystal. Crystal actually does have some scientific basis to it that helps make sense why this may work in dealing with calming and energies, etc. Other protections from negativity or negative energies, and this is more in the lore sense, but nonetheless, a lot of people, including myself, will swear by some of these. Black obsidian, black onyx, citrine. There are other different types of crystals that you can use, and quartz, different types of quartz, smoky quartz. That's really good for healing. If it is really bad, and I proceed to go on and tell her, if it is really bad, bring in a priest to bless the house. If really, really bad, get a priest or a pastor to exorcise it. Another possible cause is this is a poltergeist, and someone in the house is unknowing human agent and indirectly causing this. Negative feelings, built up angst, constant arguing, and all that goes with that can sometimes take hold and turn from a negative energy into the beginnings of or into a poltergeist type situation. And don't forget, you can always call in a medium to help. Make sure it is someone outside of your circle who doesn't know you or your friends. In other words, what is going on. And be very evasive initially to the medium about what you want, the details of what you think is is happening, what this person or entity is. I totally know mediums can be legit, and there are a lot of ones out there that I think are very good, and there's a lot out there that think they are greater than they probably really are, as far as readers of people. I just want to make sure you get help so that why I'm saying all of this is in your best interest. The less the medium knows, the better. just tell one something like a ghost or something is my house, it scares me, and if it's asked why, because it does, and I'm just hoping that you can find out what's going on, and avoid specifics. And and this is the end of that immediate exchange. And the reason, again, I did that is not that I absolutely 100% believe in psychic mediums. I just don't know, who's available to her out there. And there are some people that are not real forthright with themselves. So, yet now she comes back with, I believe, 1 or 2 more responses. So I'll let you finish that, Pam.
She comes back with, thank you so very much for the wise advice. I have tried everything but a priest and medium. Everyone keeps telling me I can't get a priest because I'm not Catholic, and I'm really not sure how to get a medium. And money is very tight for me to be able to pay one. I'll continue with the other things and hope for the best. Thanks, and Merry Christmas.
Okay, so I guess that was the end with hers. Here's the thing, too, for anybody that's listening, is that you do not have to necessarily, maybe to get a priest in, because there is going to be some hang-ups with any church, but there's certainly more at this point in time than ever before ways to get those who are ministers and have been trained in exorcisms and deliverance and exorcisms that will come and help you. And had she written back and said again to me, this is what I'm looking for, and I would have sent her some options of this is, what you can use it for, where you can get them at and have the resources. Okay. Trying to pull up another one in here. This is something I've kind of tackled before. I get a lot of emails, and it's people having to do with similar, issues or complaints that really ultimately end up having to do more than likely with sleep paralysis. And things like, now, have you felt like you haven't been able to move? You felt like someone was sitting on your chest. You just absolutely know that you're awake, but you're unable to move, and you're seeing possibly, shadows or things going on. Now, you cannot negate that certainly there could be a phenomena, some type of paranormal activity going on. More than likely, though, and it's not saying you don't want to, can't say for each individual case. You're talking about sleep paralysis and or another and very similar type sleep disorders. It can really affect a person, and it's not a serious problem. It's not something that's going to hurt you. It is also something that is common, and that is medical science states that almost everybody, at least once during their lifetime, is going to experience this.
Really?
Yeah. And you can ask some people, and people are like, oh, no, I haven't. Well, you still got time yet. And then there are people who do this all the time, which I can't even imagine how that would feel. I mean, it is that in itself, just going through the experience, even if once you know what it is frightening. It's just, and frustrating. Basically, what we're referring to as the sleep paralysis is a feeling of being conscious but unable to move. It occurs when a person passes between stages of wakefulness and sleep. And during these transitions, you're going to be unable to move or speak for a few seconds, possibly up to a few minutes. Some people may also feel pressure or sense of choking. That's another one I missed. Sleep paralysis may accompany other sleep disorders such as narcolepsy. Doesn't have to, though. Sleep paralysis usually occurs at one of two times. It occurs while you are falling asleep, or it occurs, which is, what it is, the actual term for it is what am I saying here? I don't know if you can even see this. I don't know.
I don't think I have that one.
Yeah, and these are things like when it gets into terms, like I know what they are, but I can never, again, what do you expect? I can't even pronounce people's last names. So if it happens, though, while you're waking up, it's a completely different name, and it's considered a post-dormital sleep paralysis. So as you fall asleep, your body slowly relaxes, and you become less aware, of what's going on around you. So you do notice you do notice change. However, if you remain or become aware of this while falling asleep, you may notice that you cannot move or speak. And during the sleep, your body alternates between REM, rapid eye movement, and the non-rapid eye movement sleep. And these cycles, generally you cycle in about 90 minutes, and you will go through several stages of sleep. Non-REM sleep occurs first, and it takes about 75% of your overall sleep time during a course of a night. So what happens is when your eyes start, jerking around and moving, you watch people do this, and dreams occur. But the rest of your body remains very relaxed. Your muscles are turned off, essentially. If you become aware of this REM cycle has finished, you may notice that you cannot move or speak. The opposite of this is sleepwalking. This is when people, and I always think of it like a little light switch at the cortex in the back of, of your brain there, like a little light switch that goes on, does this flipping on and off. And so sleepwalking is the opposite of that. It's where your body is now not shut off, and you are now acting out your dreams. And that's really dangerous too. So you can certainly alternate between these two, and you wouldn't know it. I've done it. So I totally understand what people are saying. And you're like, I'm telling you, I was awake. I've known so many people who have done this and witnessed it. My ex-husband, he's like, I couldn't move, and I'm calling out. I want to call out for you, and I can't. And so it is a frightening experience. But, like I said, it's not unusual, and it is actually fairly common.
So you have a question on this, Mary, that Marcellus asks. Do you feel that some of what is considered paranormal activity is just people's minds tricking them? For example, when you're told a place is haunted, you all of a sudden feel temperatures drop or watched?
I think that's certainly a possibility because you are planting it, but I think that happens when he first started that question, activity in people's minds tricking them. Yeah, I do. Because we've established this about the brains are a pretty tricky place. And so that it can be a matter of how your perceptions of how you're seeing something or feeling it or seeing it. As to sensing temperature drops and things like that, yeah, anybody could do that, absolutely. But I'm hoping that is for investigators out there that they're conscious enough to not allow themselves to be duped in that way.
Right.
Again, you can't, the brain is the brain, and there are going to be little tricks that go on in there, and eyes and perceptions of what we're going to see. But as far as planting the seed of, this is what I think or feel, that's anything is possible, but I'm hoping, again, the investigators are not going to do that. One of the...
I have to agree.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, very much.
Because some people are like, I don't want to know anything, But sometimes you kind of need to. One of the other things I'm going to throw out there real quick, and I was going to get into something a little bit about culture, but I'll just save that for another time, because that actually stemmed from email that I received, and it was from someone who, where did this guy live? In another country. I think he was in Korea, and he actually had come from France, and that's how that all started. There's several things that you can do, and we just talked in a little bit, had just talked about some of this with stones and candles, as far as protection. Blue lace agate is a good one, and that is considered a protection stone. It's believed to attract strength and offer protection from bad dreams, stress, the draining of energy. Helps to balance the energy. Obsidian is protection. That's outright. Everybody should have one of those. Prevent negative energy from affecting you. It also keeps your thoughts from turning negative. And it's a very good grounding stone. The obvious, I think most people are aware of, is crystal quartz. And then again, you've got the onyx, which is used to defend against negativity that is directed at you. Black stones have a protective energy in the sense that the black is the absence of light and therefore can be used to create an invisibility. Other ones that you could try are rock salt around your home. Black tourmaline is another one. Oh, sadly, again, we're going to run out of time for this particular
Why does that keep happening?
I don't know. Well, you know what? That's okay. It keeps giving us stuff to talk about. Each week I can come back with something. I will finish. Yeah, we'll finish up with the couple other emails next week real quick. But right now I do want to let you know that we are going to have to take a break. And when we come back, we will be joined by Robert Veach, who is an investigator, inventor. So don't go anywhere. We will be right back. Welcome back. I'm Mary Marshall, your host, and you are listening to the Paranormal MD Radio Show, airing live. You know, I do want to introduce the guest in just a moment. There was a question in the chat room that, if I don't get it now, I'm never going to get back to it. And this was from Willow Creek Farm, that it asked, assuming that spirits are dead, people who've transformed from this life to another plane, do you think that one or several who were strongly connected to you many lives ago can return by choice to be regularly in your presence? Not Granny and Grandpa, but a spouse or children from many lives before. My answer to that is yes. And that's the short answer, is yes, absolutely. That is from my own experiences. That is from speaking with other psychic mediums, people who have done past life regression, and so on and so forth, that often people in this life that we come across while we're living, the same can be true for those who are passed on or on the other side. So, yes. That's the answer to that one. We can actually get into that more on another time when we have another guest here that I have a couple people in mind that could address that really well. One thing I would like to do right now is I'd like to introduce you to our guest for this evening. His name is Robert Veach, he is a paranormal investigator, an engineer who I think is a robotics wizard. He also invents, designs, and builds his own paranormal investigating or research equipment and or modifies equipment for his own purposes. He is also the founder of Veach Paranormal. The Veach Paranormal team consists of electrical engineers, software engineers, and audio engineers. Veach Paranormal is also the only investigative unit in the world using 3D analog pictures pictures and video to further enhance the analysis phase of investigation. So without further ado, hello, Robert, and welcome to the Paranormal MD.
Hello. I'm glad to be here.
Oh, thank you for joining me tonight. You know, right away, I have to ask you this because this was in part of what I was as I was introducing you. Two things. One, what type of engineer are you?
My background's electrical engineering.
Okay, because we have the software in the and all those things, and I know it all kind of crosses over at some point. But
right.
Can you please explain to me and the listening audience? Veach Paranormal, you said, is the only investigation unit using 3D to further enhance analysis phase? What is this?
I started off early, maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, doing some 3D videos and 3D pictures just for some entertainment, and kind of got obsessed with it for a while. And then when we started the Veach Paranormal, I realized that it could be a great tool to take pictures and video in 3D by using 2 cameras. And you kind of separate the cameras the same distance as the eyes, and you process it and you produce a anaglyph 3D video. There's other types of 3D also, but primarily anaglyph is the method that everybody can see on YouTube and on their televisions. So
by taking the 2 separate and putting it as in, it's almost like audio stereo type of thing.
Exactly.
Taking the 2 cameras. Now, and I don't want to get too techy on people, I suppose, but how do you feed those 2? I mean, you're feeding those 2 together to create this 3D?
Yeah, an anaglyph is been around for a long time, and there's other methods that are better, but most people don't have access to them. It's taking a left image and a right image from a camera, and then you process it with software, and you lay the images upon each other on the screen, and your left eye sees the left image and the right eye sees the right image through use of some colored filters, the anaglyph filters. And the advantage is that if you get something that you think is paranormal, it will show you the depth of that. And so you get depth information along with just color and, and black and white information in a picture or a video.
Okay. Wow. This is the one thing I have to say, because as I mentioned, some of the people who are listening, I had the opportunity to go into your lab and see some of the things, which was just like, I think between the 2 of us, you just couldn't have gotten any geekier about stuff, because it's like geeky tech talk. It's like, oh yeah, and then this. But I was absolutely fascinated and blown away at the extent of what you put into either your modifications or builds.
Well, thanks.
Well, you really, really deserve that. So now you have, besides, I know you don't do any custom designing per se for other people, but you have had done a couple things that have been used on television, correct?
Yes. Before we go any further, I actually have an echo that's making it hard for me to concentrate a little bit. I'm hearing the actual show and everything that's being broadcast with a delay of about maybe about 30 seconds or so. So I don't know what that is, but I'll try and sound sane still with that going on. So I'm not sure what's going on with that.
But, you're not getting feedback when you have the sound down, correct?
No, it's not feedback. Yeah, I'm not listening to your stream right now other than what's coming in through the Skype, and I have headphones on. So I don't know what it is. I'm hearing myself talking right now. It was like a 30-second delay. But,
you know what? We'll, on the next break, we're going to see if there's something on our end where we can adjust it, or if it's something possibly with the setup with it. We'll figure that out on the next break.
Yeah, I'm still fine. I'll just ignore myself in the background. So, but I'm trying to think. What was the question? I'm sorry.
That's okay. I was basically saying, with a lot of this, the equipment that you have designed, and you do this custom designing mostly for yourself, but you have had a couple pieces that have been used on television shows, ghost shows, correct?
Yeah. In particular, Ghost Adventures used one of my Constantine diode microphones on one episode. So that was kind of neat.
That is kind of cool, to see it out there. And other people, no, here's a question, though. Did they use it the right way? As you're watching it, did they use it the right way?
Well, I kind of was watching and not even knowing that they were going to use it because they didn't tell me, and I had sent it to them. They used it the right way, but of course, they didn't have a whole segment of how to use it. They were just showing it in his hand, and they used it correctly.
Yeah, see, that's a lot of, I will say this year in watching their show that I've seen dramatic improvement over previous years of them at least explaining things better now.
Oh, I agree. It's kind of funny because, I don't have direct communication to them other than Billy Tully, and sometimes I'll post a video. This happened early on, like how to use the Ghost Box, the SP7. And then I noticed that Zach starts talking about it and explaining it a little better. So I think they really try to make the show more technically accurate. They try and present things the proper way to use equipment, which is great.
Yeah, I as much as, and I always say this about them, they're drama queens, but that's what we love about them. It is entertainment, after all. It is
right.
Television. But I've done the same thing. Anybody that I've known that might know them, I will just say, I would love to see them explain things more. I understand that there's a lot of novice that are just watching, but there's a lot of investigator types that do know more.
Right.
And even for the novice watching, how often, sadly, we know where people are going to watch the show and say, oh, I could do this too. And they're learning whatever they get from television.
Exactly.
So
they try and mimic it.
Right, exactly. And so they have gotten better. Actually, they're one of the better shows out there about at least explaining their process now.
Exactly. Right. And they debunk their own stuff, which I like.
Yeah.
And, and from what I've heard behind the scenes, they don't fake things. If something is missed, but they catch it on camera, they edit that in, and they don't recreate things like some of the other shows do. It's pretty valid.
Yeah. We are going to have to take a top of the hour break. I want to let everyone listening, don't go anywhere because we have much, much more to talk about and to bring to you. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Hello, and welcome back to the Paranormal MD. I am Mary Marshall, your host, and you are listening to the Paranormal MD Radio Show. The phone lines are now open, so if you would like to call into the show, that direct studio phone line number is. Before the break, we were in a discussion with my guest, Robert Veach. By the way, Robert, is that how you say your last name, Veach?
Yes, it is.
Oh, thank goodness, I got it right. He is from the founder of the Veach Paranormal Investigative Group, Research Group. Their website is vparanormal.com. So hopefully we've solved before the break. You were having some feedback issues, so hopefully that's stopped now, and you can have a sane conversation instead of having all these voices going on in your head delay.
I hate to say it, but it's still there, but I'll work around it.
Oh, no.
It's okay. I'll figure it out.
It can be tricky. I will tell you that, because some of the setups and, with the way computers are now, you just have to find that right, something's out. Something's out of sort, and that can cause it.
I shut down everything other than the stream, so thinking it was something else. I got nothing else running right now, so it's weird. I'll work around it.
Yeah, it's like I said. I bet you there's still one more setting or something in your laptop. I'm sorry, I feel bad.
Okay.
Well, one of the things, we were talking about like some of the designs and Ghost Adventures using them. There was a question that did come from Paramon in the chat room, and can you? All right, it was like, do you feel that some team? Well, no, this is not from him. Can you ask Robert if he's using OpenCV? I have no idea what that is. Do you know what that is? I
have no idea.
Okay. So apparently not, because we don't know what it is. The other question is from Marcellus. Do you feel that some teams overuse devices during investigations and don't really understand how they work or what they're used for?
Well, I kind of feel that devices, when they're used properly, are very important in an investigation, because I don't want to just rely on what I'm feeling or seeing. I want to be able to document it. And I think documentation is really important. That's why we always have an investigation video, as well as technical videos. But, you could overuse equipment. I understand that, because it takes a lot of time to set up. But I just think it's a really good way to validate what you're seeing and experiencing.
Yeah. I mean, I agree with you on that, in that when people ask me, it's like, well, what's with all the equipment, and and we say, well, the best tool you have is you, the investigator, and it's like, well, that's only partially true.
Yeah.
We as people are not the best thing we have going, but it is the investigator, how their knowledge level on how they use things and their procedures that make the difference.
Right. I mean, we're just human beings. We have, we have our own perceptions of things. We have things going on in our brain, the pareidolia, the matrixing. At least with equipment usually doesn't lie. And and some of the devices that I've made, the custom devices, are just for that reason. They have a little edge on what my perceptions are during investigation. I want a little advantage so that I can document what is happening in the environment other than just what I'm seeing or feeling. So I think it's important, at least for the way I want to investigate, the method I want to use.
Yeah. I mean, because you do have those, I mean, I know of a couple people that really don't use a lot of stuff. They're just like, well, all I've got is an audio recorder and a camera and, a handheld camera, and that's it. That's all I use. To me, you can certainly come across activity. There's no question about that. That is more leaving you to personal experiences. It's not, you can't document anything.
Right. So if you're just telling somebody that you had this experience, that's great from an experience point of view, but then you're not documenting what you had. And one of the reasons I got involved with the paranormal and started doing this was to kind of validate some of what I was seeing out there. And I also started seeing equipment not being used properly, so I started buying some of that equipment and modifying it and coming up with my own ideas. But to have the right equipment and to document it, to me, is very important to add credibility to this whole industry, in general.
Yeah. And we do need to do that. I mean, everybody, no matter what industry you're in, everybody uses equipment outside of themselves to test things. You have just simple electrician. I mean, that's half the tools that we started out using were electrician tools.
Right.
Well, they had them for a reason, too. No matter what industry you're in. Everybody uses equipment to, outside of themselves to test things. What is, out of the things, and you have a lot. You have, I mean, just talk about being envious when I saw all the stuff that you have. Out of the he's giggling. Yeah, I know, but it's good, and it's all good. In the pieces of equipment that you have designed yourself,
right,
that you use or others may even at this point have used to investigate. What are a couple of your favorite pieces and why?
The most favorite thing I think works really great is probably the Paratalk that I showed you. And it's just a device that uses a microphone, and whenever you ask a question, as opposed to just saying it into the air, it sends a radio frequency signal of your voice into the air as a basic electromagnetic wave, and it also sends a FM signal similar to what the Ghost Box does. And I just have gotten really good responses in EVPs using that device, and it's probably one of my favorite devices that I have.
Any others?
The one optical device that I showed you, the Parashadow, is probably my second favorite. Unfortunately, it takes a long time to set up, but that device, I think, has a lot of potential at the right location, and I'm hoping to bring it at Willow Creek Farm and in Shannon, Illinois, and work with Al, the owner there, to try and get some image of anything that's going on in the paranormal on that device. So I think that's my second favorite device.
Okay, that makes sense. It totally makes sense. Yeah, I mean, the reasoning. We have some clarification. I have to go back to the chat room in a question. This was that Open CV. He came back with Open CV is used for the converting of two camera signals into stereo 3D images. If not, what software are you using to recreate the 3D characterization?
Okay. Let me look at my screen right here.
And keep in mind that if you don't get too techie, because we're not going to understand you.
Well, the most basic software that I've used to do it is called Stereo Movie Maker, and it's really basic, and I think it's even freeware. And I process the left and right camera signals and from the video into one video stream. So that's what I'm using right now. I'm sure what the other person is referring to is probably more advanced, and it probably has a lot of options for other different types of 3D. The reason why I want to use something simple is because probably the majority of people don't have LCD 3D glasses at home, and they don't have the ability to look at their screen or watch YouTube videos like that. But Emiglyph is so basic that I could send a pair of glasses out to somebody for 30 cents, and they can see the 3D videos that I would present.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Yeah, that makes sense on that. We have another question, and this is from, I'm wondering, is this yours? I don't know if this Steve belongs to you or not, but this is from Steve. I don't think it says, since Veach Paranormal seems to be so evidence-based, how do they make sure what they get is really evidence and not just random events? That is a good question.
Yeah, well, there are random events that are happening all around us. And, if you have the equipment to document things, everything that we do, we try and videotape what's going on. When we're doing a live session for EVPs with the USB microphone, we video record everybody. We try and monitor people's faces and make sure that they're not saying syllables. And I'm working on some new devices that I started to show you that will actually, put a timeline down of everything that's going on during the investigation. The stereo audio, the temperature changes, the electromagnetic radiation. I look at the evidence very closely, just like you do, and we probably throw out the bulk of it. And the things that are totally unexplainable, we keep, because we usually have some kind of backing with the equipment that validates that. That's the stuff that we present.
Yeah, it's interesting when you're saying that. I'm gonna because I'm going to throw out two more questions because it's kind of goes with this all, and it's going to lead into a larger conversation about this. Do you, and this is again from Paramount, do you really think you are really having successful communication using a modulated AM frequency range? And for anybody listening, so basically spirit box. That's what it's referring to.
Well, they could be talking about two things there. They could be talking about the Paratalk device, which does send an AM modulated signal for wherever you talk, as well as an FM modulated. So I don't know if that's effectively working because I've had that successfully work on investigations, but of course nothing's 100%. You don't know if you're getting a response from that device alone or that somebody is hearing me acoustically in the environment.
Right.
But
modulated signal
right,
at that point.
right.
Yeah.
But in terms of the ghost box, there's a lot of debate about the ghost box, and you have a choice of AM or FM. And, one of the debunkers on our team, Dr. Walter Tuckman, he was always referring to that ghost box, saying, what makes you think that an entity knows how to modulate an FM signal or an AM signal? And that's a good, valid question. The AM signal is extremely simple to generate. You could hit a metal pan with a hammer and you can generate an AM signal from the pulse of the material, the metal vibrating. It'll make a slight magnetic field. It's very simple. Now, FM's a little different. So why does an entity have the ability to communicate and make an FM modulated signal? I don't know the answer to that, but I have seen so much evidence with the FM and the AM, but primarily the FM ghost box, as a way of getting actual communication back from something in the environment. And I've seen that happen in our investigations, and I've had a lot of different teams send me information that I've analyzed, and I can't explain it, but there's something going on there. Multiple syllables coming in more than 3 or 4 channels wide is really, really hard to duplicate. Even if you had somebody across the street, CB or blasting some FM signal, the odds of it coming in with a channel change are very, very slim.
Yeah. We are going to need to take a break, so I tell everybody listening, stay tuned, smile. We'll be right back. And welcome back. You're listening to the Paranormal MD Radio Show, and I'm Mary Marshall, your host. One of the things, real quick, I do want to get out there to folks who are listening. If I want to remind you, if you've missed part of this show, you can listen to it. This week's show will be available to listen to for free. Also, the phone lines are open. If you have a question or comment, the phone number or toll free. I have been speaking with Robert Veach of Veach Paranormal. And Robert, the questions that are coming in, you would not believe from the chat room while we've been on there. I want to address something real quick. I had actually saw somebody write, and it's just impossible. Trying to monitor and everything. I wish I could stay in the mix of things in the chat room and up to speed, but unfortunately, I'm always way behind. Someone had mentioned about, trying to get and document and getting evidence, and that, really this has gotten to a point where either people are going to believe or they're not going to believe.
Right.
And so why are we, knocking ourselves out trying to get this proof? Well, my personal thing is more times when you're doing proof, using that term, that is generally for a client who wants proof because they want to know they're not crazy.
Right. Right.
More times than not. But don't you think, Robert, that they have, for the most part, we have moved past the prove it stage? I think we and the general public all know that these anomalous things are going on, that this type of phenomena occurs. It's now become more of, well, how is it occurring?
Right.
I
fully agree. If one of the things that always upsets me a little bit is people that don't take the time to look at what's going on in this field, and they kind of like they're the official debunkers in some ways. But if you're involved in this field and you go on investigations, it doesn't take you long to realize that there's something valid going on, and you just know that when you start to get the EVPs, when you start to get the responses from your equipment, you just know something's going on. So I'm at the point now where it's not about proving it to the debunkers. It's really, I'm trying to just validate the whole industry with technology and with making professional videos showing what we're getting. Because, first of all, I find it incredibly interesting, the whole field itself. And if you've been on investigation, most people know that it's a thrill to get something. But, it's also a lot of work, and you end up throwing out a large percentage of what you get. But that's the challenge of this. The challenge is to try and get something and document it and throw the bulk of it out. And then what you end up with, hopefully some clear evidence that there is something paranormal going on. We don't have answers for it, but there's something going on that's not fully explained. But we've detected it with our instruments. We detected it with our own eyes and our own ears, and we also felt these things going on. So it validates all these things when you have the right equipment, the right people, and you present it to the public.
Right. We have a caller on the line. Welcome to the Paranormal MD. You are live on the air. Who am I speaking with?
Good evening, Mary. This is Antone.
Well, hello, sir.
Otherwise known as Paramount. Sorry.
Yeah, I know. You just got impatient. I couldn't. You know what? No, I'm not going to wait for you to ask my questions, Mary. I'm calling. I'm glad you did. So happy.
No, I'm going to call and thank Robert because I'm glad he's doing what he's doing.
Well, thank you.
Breath of fresh air to have another one in the field, so thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, Anton, you guys would have a great. I should just sit back and let you guys talk because he's the same thing. It's way beyond me in the thought process. You know what, Anton? You're on the air. What are some? You had a couple of questions in there, so please ask them.
I had a couple in there, but basically I wanted to call and thank him and say, I wish you were a little closer. I could use a little bit of help on the engineering side because most of my stuff is done in software itself.
Oh, okay.
Got laptops that I take in. It's all standalone. All it does is go online, do video, audio, and sensor recording of the environment and logs it all.
Okay. Is this custom software, audio software, or is this, something that anybody can buy?
It's all custom. I wrote all of it, yes.
Oh, that's neat.
Does certain things, and
you guys need. I'll give you guys, if it's okay, with some emails or hook you up on Facebook.
Okay.
Yep, that would be fine. But for now, I'll just go ahead and back out and let him get back on. He's doing a great job covering the material.
Thank you.
Oh, thanks, Anton. It was great hearing from you.
Yep, thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Yeah, he's a smart cookie himself. It would actually, you guys might be really beneficial to each other because of some of the things. Although I know you've got other software and whatever engineer type minded people around you, but it always is good. It's good. Everybody learns from each other.
Yep, I agree.
In there. One of the things, here's a pretty simple question that did come out of the chat room, which was, do you think, and this is kind of one of those quicker, do you think it's possible to communicate with yes or no answers using a K2?
Well, yes and no. I mean, a K2 meter is a very good, simple device for measuring electromagnetic fields. And as you mentioned to me, we were talking about this, it's kind of pretty wide-banded. It picks up a lot of signals. So it could be fooled by a lot of things. But, the strength of the thing has to be pretty strong or pretty close to it. If you had a cell phone text message, it's going to affect it. And to give you an example, early on I had a K2 meter, and I was at somebody's house, and we were asking questions, and it seemed like it was answering with the responses. We're getting these strong responses. And it turns out the person was getting text messages, and it just happened to stream. It happened to just coordinate perfectly.
Yeah.
So, you got to be careful with it. And one of the things I showed you, Mary, is I'm tapping off the K2 meter now, and I found an audio portion on there, and that's going to be sent to my netbook. And when I do my real-time EVPs with my USB microphone, I'm going to also have the audio from the K2 meter on one of the lines.
Yeah.
So that I can't be fooled, So I'll know what the information is coming in. And some people have even gotten EVPs off the audio stream from the K2 meter, because it really is a basic AM decoder radio, really.
Right. And I've tried it, because we were talking about that, and the one piece of equipment I had, and you had this fantastic setup, but that was the one thing I think that you had not added into your system yet. And I've tried it. It's nice. You can actually listen. You can also listen to it. Yep. You're just basically listening to the EMF. Again, in that theory, is this how it's coming across, and will we actually pick up anything off of that?
Right. And you could avoid being fooled by listening to it also, because if you have something coming in that is noise, 60 hertz, you're going to be able to hear that. If you get an EVP, you're going to be able to hear that. If you get something that's like a microwave oven or a text message, I've tested all those things, and you could distinguish what each thing is. So that's really why I want it on my timeline, along with the actual audio.
I think it's so critical, and unfortunately, like I told you just recently, that the one piece of equipment that I'm using, and that guy, he's no longer in existence per se. So I'm going to be hitting you up, Robert, when it comes time for some. Here, can you fix or modify this piece of equipment, because I think it's beyond me. But it's really important, I think, like you said, to graph, to be able to see across the line any of your atmospheric changes, to be able to mark them, mark on a timeline if a paranormal event is occurring, so that you can check it. There's just, and again, it's not trying to do overkill. You really need to do all these things for comparison, to find is there a pattern? Right.
It's interesting. I was talking to one of the debunkers, Dr. Tuckman again, and he thinks that a lot of the EVPs, and my brother Stephen also thinks this too. Maybe we are sending this information as an EVP out. We're asking these questions, and maybe we're sending it ourselves out as a really weak EMF. I don't know. So another thing I want to eventually do is have a monitor of the brain waves, and have that being sent as a specialized signal, and be another one of the timelines.
I want to be with you when you do that.
Because maybe we're sending it. Maybe we're doing or fooling ourselves.
Exactly. Because now you get this, and this is almost would come from a psychic medium, to where you're saying there's like a telepathy in a sense between it. And maybe that is the case. But again, is there something changing in our own brain waves then?
Right. That's what I want to see.
Because haven't you ever done where, and I just played a few weeks ago, I think an EVP, in which I go and I call out after this couple that was in the house and call their names, and then an EVP is had where they were in their bedroom, and I actually was thinking, you know what, it's like 1:30 in the morning now, they might actually fell asleep in there, they might be sleeping. And then you hear a male voice say, maybe they're sleeping, followed within 2 seconds of me then saying, I wonder if they might be sleeping. And it was the same. So did I project something and that echoed back, but I understand it's a male voice, or is there a telepathy? But again, it'd be nice to look at the brain waves.
Yeah, and you know what? If it is the brains, then that's paranormal too, because, that means that we're able to do something that nobody would believe we could do.
Right.
It's kind of like, some of the testing that's been done about EVPs, where they put a digital recorder in a shield, and they still get
Faraday.
EVPs. Yeah, Faraday shield. Yeah. I showed you basic one I made. Microwaves a Faraday shield. I mean, how do you explain an EVP coming in, bypassing the microphone elements, and coming in past a shield like that? That's like, it defines the laws of engineering and physics. It shouldn't be happening.
Yeah.
So who knows what's going on there? But so the more data,
or in a vacuum.
Yeah, in a vacuum, right?
That.
Right. The more information that you could have during an event, the more validity you get to it. And you may find that EVPs come in to your questions, but there's not going to be an EMF response. There may not be a temperature delta response. There may not be something with the brain waves. And then you may find that there could be brainwave activity and no EVPs, or, who knows what you're going to get. But the more information you could collect and save on your computer and present, it just adds more validity to this, so that we get more answers. My overall goal is to eventually have a system where it's almost like a telephone system to the other side. I eventually want to have it all set up where you're speaking into the system and everything's being recorded and monitored, and in real time somehow we're going to get some information going back and forth and start some kind of dialogue. And that would just be the most awesome thing possible to me.
Right. I think that's the big thing is with a lot of the things we do, it's a process of elimination.
Right.
And that's what science is.
Yep.
It is. It's looking. It's observation and correlation, and a process that and it's whatever you're left with, that's the answer. Well, it might only be the answer for a while, but at least that's the answer for now.
Right. Right.
Yeah, with all of these kinds of things. There is another question here. What is your explanation for a question asked and a direct, accurate answer in response to the question heard on a novelist? I don't know what your answer is. My answer is chance, but I don't know what your answer is.
I would say it's chance also. Simply because here's the way I feel about the ovulus. If you brought an ovulus to a location that you thought was paranormal, and you did that over and over again, and you were there every weekend, and you did this for 30, 40, 50 times, and you start to get better and better responses, then I would start to say that there's a pattern being developed, and that entity that might be there is starting to learn how to manipulate the sensors on that device.
Yeah.
But going into a place and expecting any entity, if it is there, to understand how to manipulate that is really asking too much. I mean, I was at an investigation in Yorkville, Illinois, where we're located, and there's a senior service center, and I was getting tons of EVPs that weren't audible, and I didn't know what that was at the time, and I contacted Gary Gelka, and he told me that there's subsonic EVPs. So here's a classic case where some entity or something was going on, and they were trying to communicate, and they were basically touching the microphone diaphragm, but it wasn't audible. So, how do you expect an entity to be able to manipulate 4 or 5 different parameters on this device? I just don't think it's going to happen. So most of it's going to be random unless you go there 30, 40, 50 times and you have some kind of intelligent entity that can manipulate those devices and learn the subsequent words that come through.
Yeah. I'm in agreement with. See, you and I do have a lot of the same thought process. You're just a whole lot smarter than me, but the same thought process.
Oh, I don't think I'm smarter than you. I'm just I just more obsessed about it.
Oh, well, thanks for being
and obsessed with a basement full of electronics. That's the difference.
You know, a lot of the things where you get different people come in and they're asking as far as, I'm really a stickler about looking at things and trying to, and that's where a lot we are in agreement.
Right.
I very much about communication. I will try just about anything from Ovilus. I have a little bit of an issue with because it is assigned. It is a dictionary. There is an assignment. It's not of value to certain frequencies. We don't know that some of the most common frequencies out there could be associated with words like death, fell,
right.
kill, you know.
Right.
And so every time somebody's, you know, these common frequencies are coming by, it's going to kick out these words. I've had the experience, I've used them, and I've had the experience where almost every investigation, this darn thing will say a handful of the same words because it's a common frequency.
Yeah, right. And, you know, I never got a clear answer from the designer, Bill Chappell, what parameters he's really measuring. And, you know, I've got something set up in the lab right now. I'm experimenting right now on something with temperature. And just to get something that could analyze and sense the movement of a hand within a couple inches of the device is taking massive amount of electronics. So I just wonder how valid the electronics is in something like that, that's measuring the parameters enough to get a consistent result. You know, I don't own one, so I've never taken one apart, but I would love to hit it with a certain electromagnetic field, a certain temperature, and just see if I get the same words every time.
Right. I agree, and that's the thing a lot with a lot of these that are hand-built pieces, too. There's various different people putting them together.
Right, exactly.
It's not an assembly line, you know, factory, everything's exactly the same.
Right.
So, yeah, I do have some questions with pieces like that. With this being said, I will use, you know, Spirit Box working off of, you know, radio. I will have tried several times with flashlights by trying to get, let's see, we got flashlights, let's check the ELF, the VLF, you know, frequencies. So I'm hitting everything. Let's just see what changes. But people, I actually have a formula, just a simple math formula, and out of the questions you just asked, let's say you're using the flashlight, how many of them are actually answerable with yes or no? Because if you go back and you listen to the audio or video of people asking, they'll ask questions that can't be answered yes or no. That's one thing. They'll be like, so, you know, what color shirt am I wearing? That's not a yes or no question. If you went through and asked how many questions you asked, how many were answerable, and how many actually got a response.
Right.
And it wasn't random. Personally, I have yet to come even close to anything other than just chance.
Right.
With the way it's answered. Now, that doesn't mean that it can't happen.
Right.
But those are things that as investigators you need to look at.
Right. And you know, the environment, if you could really validate and have the parameters sent into that and see that it consistently picks certain words, you know, then I would take it with more credibility. But that's never been really done by anybody at this point that I'm aware of.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's with a lot of it. So, yeah, we do play, you know, we always talk about it in our toys and use equipment outside of ourselves, but even that is only as good as the operator.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. You know, it's something as simple as a ghost box. I was getting evidence videos from different teams, and I kept telling them, you know, how to use the device because they were sending me things that weren't too valid, and their scan rates were wrong and things. But once somebody really uses the device properly, it could be a really powerful tool to get some evidence, and I've gotten some impressive ghost box responses that were I couldn't explain them in any way. And, I'm talking about real words like a name of a person coming through multiple times and yes and no answers and multiple syllables on the ghost box, so.
Yeah. And then if it's doing that, you're getting into different frequencies. That thing's scanning so fast. If you get a EVP and it's the same voice,
right,
and it's a cohesive sentence,
right,
that's impressive.
That is impressive. And, I did a test with my ghost box with the SB7. I actually, I had a signal generator produce radio frequencies, and I went through and I saw how selective the ghost box was. So what I did is I blasted it with a really wide signal of about 10 different channels. And to my surprise, that thing did not let them in. It only let one channel in at a time that was right in the frequency. So just like a digital broadcast, just like your Comcast system, your cable box, it is tuned now to one channel. It's not like the old analog receivers. So when that ghost box is scanning at 1/10 of a second and it changes one channel, it is really changing the channel. It's not approximate. It is.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And one other thing out there, because I asked you about this, and dealing with, for anybody listening, if you're dealing with the SB7 or your spirit box, ghost box, and I'm like, what is with the deal with people going, oh, put it in reverse, and I'm like, it's the same thing. You're either scanning up or you're scanning down the channels. It's a scan.
Right.
And
right.
Your response to me was, we don't know why, but it just seems that it works better. And sometimes it comes down to
statistically scanning down seems to work better, and I don't know, you're right, it doesn't make any sense at all. It makes less sense to me to have to go in the downward direction as opposed to an upward direction. But, try both directions. But just the important thing is to keep that scan rate at 100 milliseconds as fast as possible. And then another thing that's really important with the ghost box is when you're recording with your digital recorder, make sure it's relatively close to the ghost box. And when you ask the questions, move the recorder to your mouth closer. But when you get the responses, make sure that you're within 2 feet of that so that you could really analyze it, in simple programs, audio programs, to make sure you can see those channel changes so that you can validate when you get 3 or more channel changes of something contiguous that can validate the response.
Would you mind if it's not too difficult to get into, because that is something for people that are listening. When they're doing that and they load that into their audio software, right, how do you see channel changes? What do they need to do to look for that? It should be really obvious if they're looking like an Adobe or any audio program, and they look at the timeline, and if the signal is weak, you have to amplify the signal. And so most of these programs let you turn up the volume on the signal, but you will see little spaces between the channel changes. You obviously hear the static and changing, but when you look closely at the wave, you'll see it. And when you go on your little timeline and you move your arrow there and you look at the actual time, just add 1/10 of a second and you'll start to see the period, I can't say the right word, periodicity of that. And you'll clearly see where the syllables are falling within there. And, to me, if it has 3 or more, then it's pretty valid, because you've had 3 channel changes and 3 syllables that made some contiguous sense in words. Right. When you're dealing with the channel changes like that. Another tip that I think is really, really important for people to know who are doing this and going, as far as actually investigating, is what is the easiest way for a person to know when they're looking at it, an EVP is actually an EVP? As far as, the left channel, I probably didn't ask this correctly, but when you're dealing with the left channel, if you can do it in the right channel, and it should equal out to 0, correct?
Yes. One of the things that Veach Paranormal was working with in terms of EVPs was to validate them. And there's some real simple software, and Adobe's one of them. And, when people want to when they want to sing to a song, they want to remove the vocalist and put their voice in. So there is a vocal subtraction that's on most of these software packages. And because EVPs tend to not use the microphones, they tend to bypass the microphones, they generally end up in the center in the stereo field. So I always tell people it's extremely important to use a stereo wide microphone digital recorder. And one of the things we have a really wide microphone digital recorder that I designed. And the advantage of that is that when you're asking questions, you can get positional information about the people in the room who's asking the questions. If you hear a knock or a sound, you can tell where it's coming from. But when you listen to it, you know right away when it's an EVP because it's usually right in the center. And it's got, of course, the unique sounds of an EVP. It's always faster. The syllables are unusual. The sound is very weak, but it's usually in the center. So if you want to validate any EVP you get, do that vocal subtraction on the left and the right, and you'll see that EVP will disappear. And when it disappears, it means that it came in and it bypassed the microphones and it was equal energy on the left and right channels. And that's just one way you can really validate any EVP you get, as long as you start off with a good source of stereo recording during the EVP.
Right, and it has to be stereo. If you're using a mono, it's not going to work.
No, it's not going to work. And you know what I've noticed? I've had different groups send me their evidence. And I'll tell you, when they send me a monophonic EVP, I can't do anything with it. It's it's so hard to validate. It's so hard to hear. And then in terms of processing, if you want to process it a little bit, volume and just maybe clean it up, it's so difficult when it's a monophonic signal. But there's a lot of tricks you can do to enhance something. And I think that's one of the things I showed you. I have a little amplifier that I designed that will enhance the center channel so that the EVPs will come in a little stronger. So that when we're doing real-time EVPs with the USB microphone and all these other sensors I'm going to be designing, you could actually see it on the timeline. And then when you have the ability to see it, then you can do that subtraction we talked about, and right on the spot you can validate it and move on to your next question. Right.
Yeah. It's great to be able to do and see this all in real time. I mean, that's right. Fantastic. We're getting close to running out of time, but I do have one more question for you, and I apologize to anybody in the chat room if I've not gotten to your question. This one is, have you gotten EVP of something speaking in your voice but isn't you? Has that ever happened to you?
Well, yes, in a way. We had something real interesting happen on an investigation. There was an entity, we had called from a company, and this is a commercial company, and they told us that something's going on, and one of these entities repeats words into their ear, and it repeats their own voice. It mimics their own voice, not perfectly. And I thought that was really kind of strange. So we were doing some real-time EVPs using the stereo microphone and using Adobe Audition. And on the screen, it's pasted, the audio is going across. And my son, Stephen, asked a question. And we heard the question that Stevie was asking that was previously asked from one of the persons behind him. And it came through as an EVP. And what's really cool is that we had multiple digital recorders going, and some of them were like a foot apart. And only one of them picked up that EVP. The stereo mic didn't, the USB mic didn't, but one of the digital recorders did. And it was really bizarre because it was a repeat of the question that the lady asked Stephen. And it wasn't the lady's direct voice, but it was the voice of somebody imitating her. And it was clear as day. It was as if I was trying to imitate, or that person was imitating that person asking a question. So that was the only time that's actually happened. I've never heard my voice or anybody on the team's voice yet.
Yeah, and I have heard that, and it's similar to me, like the doppelganger type thing, where people are like, there's this somebody who looked just like you or sounded just like you. I question, too, is it just a matter of, when we were talking earlier about, in a sense of an echo, as we speak, and that in the frequency, in the wave that we send out, is this something that they're able to possibly, for lack of a better way, to ride, and that they're somehow manipulating that, and there is that kind of kickback where it does sound similar to your own voice? I mean, again, we don't know anything for sure, but
yeah, we don't know, and that's the thing. When I did get that response, I had the client talk into the Paratalk that I developed, and I made sure that everybody that asked the question, was quiet until they asked the question. So that was really unique because it was actually her asking a question, and then my son repeated the question, and then that EVP came in of that question of that person, and that person wasn't talking at the time. And again, when we did some subtraction analysis on it, that EVP came right in the center. And the positional information from the person behind my son was on the left side, letting me know that that was a real person in the acoustic environment. But the EVP was right in the center, very low volume, and it was almost a mimic of the person asking the question. It's almost like they were making fun of the person,
right?
Which was really bizarre. And prior to that, we actually had some phenomena happening with a printer coming on and printing calendars when somebody had perished. And when my son we had a camera on him, and he said, could that be that particular person who's a joker, jokester personality? And a clear VP came in, and you heard a very scary laugh. I don't even want to do it because it scares me. So that was a really interesting investigation. So to answer the question, I've never had a repeat of our voices, but a repeat of a client's voice came through as a mimic.
Yeah, that's interesting. Very interesting.
Yes.
Well, sadly, we're nearing the end of our time together this week. So
went fast.
It did. I did. And I say this all the time. We're going to have to come back. I think I'm just going to have a show with all the comeback people. So I'm going to need to wrap this up. I just want to thank you, though, for being part of this episode of the Paranormal.
No problem. It was great. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thank you for sharing your time and knowledge with us this evening. I do want to let people at home know and give you a little bit of information on the guests for next week. I want to let you know that the guest next week will be Reverend Michael Schroeder, who is a certified licensed exorcist that will be joining us. Also remind the listeners that you catch up on all the information, the websites of Roberts and everything else, including the roundtable at the paranormalmdradio.com. Thanks again, Robert, for joining me.
No problem, Mary. It was great.